Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to America once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a couple of times before. Now, these guys are a very well respected brewery, probably best known for their different New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, but they were originally best known for their different kinds of Belgian and Belgian type sour beers actually. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases here in Hong Kong. It's a style that they are not all that well known for, but one their local area is very well known for, and it is a style that I very much enjoy. And I always like trying different styles from breweries that I'm quite familiar with. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one's going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head over to the American West Coast, to California, to the southern part of the state and Los Angeles, and to be specific, we are going to a place called Torrance. So that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Monkish Brewing Company. This particular beer is called West Coast Gift. It comes in at 7% ABV, and this one is a West Coast IPA. So, like I mentioned, this is a style that Monkish are not that well known for, and that was the main reason that this one kind of caught my fancy. I thought, you know, having a West Coast IPA from a brewery very well known for their hazies is quite an interesting prospect, and it's a style I very much enjoy, so why not? But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we get on. The West Coast Gift, 7% West Coast IPA from Monkish Brewing Company in Torrance, Los Angeles, California. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Monkish Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add a few more reviews from them in the near future because their beers do come to Hong Kong quite regularly. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the American playlist along with a number of other things. And we will be adding to that quite a little bit over the next wee while because there's lots of American beer over here, which is nice. But do check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well because there are some very interesting things here on the channel. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Monkish Brewing Company once again. So Monkish Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Torrance in Los Angeles in California on the American West Coast, and the company was founded by Henry and Adriana Nguyen. So Henry has a PhD in theology and he taught at Loyola Marymount University, but apparently his interest in beer originates from when he was drinking Belgian beers during his PhD studies in Scotland, and apparently he started homebrewing in 2007 and was teaching part-time, but he managed to raise funds from family when he decided that he was going to take his homebrewing hobby a little bit more seriously and turn professional. So the brewery was actually founded back in 2011, but they opened up in 2012, which they quote as their start date. And they had a capacity of only 15 barrels and a small tap room on the site initially. But apparently the plan was originally to focus predominantly on sour beer, but they had poured all of the money they had into getting the brewery off the ground, and so they couldn't actually afford the barrels they would have needed to do this. So in the early days, Adriana was also working full-time at Toyota to support their 3 children, while Henry would take their youngest child on deliveries during the day and then brew the beers in the middle of the night so that things just kind of worked out for the family. But they tried to brew sours a bit later on and then eventually began to focus on barrel-aged saisons, and they gained a lot of praise for this, having struggled to get the acidity from their other sour beers. So they really started to make their niche with these kind of big barrel-aged saison beers. But in 2014, Henry promoted Jennifer True from the tasting room to be the assistant brewer, and she apparently is very much behind the IPA output at the brewery. She was the one who really kind of turned the window, and apparently before this, they used to have a sign in the tap room that said no IPA. So yeah, that kind of tells you what you need to know, but that has changed quite a lot. But over the years, they've continued to grow, and they've been driven a lot by Henry's perfectionism. Apparently, he calls himself a big ball of stress all the time, and over the years, they've expanded the brewery and added more employees to the team. In 2021, they took over the premises of Anaheim Brewing after the owners decided to retire, and this expanded the brewery capacity quite significantly, and they operate a beer garden there in addition to the original tasting room in Torrance. But as of February 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 880 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And as I mentioned earlier, they are known primarily these days for their New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. So finding a West Coast IPA from them was quite a find, which is strange considering they are a West Coast American brewery. So yeah, interesting stuff. But that is all I can really tell you about Monkish Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll just let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one. There's no back label to this as well, which is quite interesting, but there you can see the front label, which looks very nice. I'll just put my face behind it so the camera actually focuses on it, because it has face finding technology. But yeah, there you can see the Monkish Brewing symbol on the bottom there, which says drink fresh. I'm drinking this one, I think, when it's about I think it's about 6 weeks old at this point, but I'm not 100% sure about that. I believe I told you lies at the start of the video. This is 7.1%, not 7% ABV. But yeah, really nicely presented, this one, a West Coast gift. So yeah, this is hopped with Mosaic, Simcoe and Amarillo. We know all of these hops quite well. All three of them are American. Mosaic is about 14% alpha acid. It's going to give you these lovely big kind of tangerine notes. Simcoe is going to give you a kind of oily passion fruit in a West Coast IPA. That is 12% alpha acid, if I remember correctly, one of the more old school hops. And then Amarillo is about 12% alpha acid too, and it's going to give you these big, lovely, juicy, oily, orangey characters as well. So yeah, it was the hop build that made me really interested in this one too. So yeah, it's a 473 milliliter can, this 1 American pint, in other words, or 16 freedom ounces as the Americans call it, or 16 fluid ounces in the freedom unit scale. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. I'm very curious about this. So, nice little bit of smoke on the opening, and we'll get this guy out and into the glass. Ooh, this looks nice. We'll leave a little bit in the can to kind of get the head going again a bit later on. But yeah, I think this is going to be nice enough for the moment. So, as you can see, I think we've got about 80% of the beer out and into the glass. But you can see, when it poured, it had a little bit over a half finger of a kind of more bumpy, but I would say kind of perfect white head there. Some medium-sized bubbles on the surface, but it does get a little bit kind of bigger the further up the head that you go. You can see lovely kind of pale golden straw colour on this one. If I shine the light through this, yeah, I think pale golden straw is about right for describing the colour of this one. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation, 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass there, but yeah, pretty much crystal clear, actually. Not even a little bit of that natural haze to it. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But yeah, you don't often have to care about that with IPAs. It is mostly due to the type of malts, if you like. So when it comes to West Coast IPAs, for me, this style can lean 2 ways. It can be a little bit more kind of bready and biscuity, such as the Russian River Pliny the Elder, or it can be a little bit more kind of oily and caramelly, such as the Sierra Nevada Torpedo. For me, those are two kind of benchmarks of the style that I've tried. You guys might have a different point of reference, of course. But yeah, this one for me, just judging by the colour and the fact that it's a bit more yellow, I think this is going to be leaning a lot more toward that kind of bready and biscuity end of the spectrum rather than anything else. If it was going to be caramelly, I think we'd get a little bit more of a kind of blood orange colour out of this one. But that said, it is only 7% ABV, so we'll just need to see. But yeah, appearance wise, certainly in line with what I've seen from the style before. Nothing particularly untoward about it. I don't think we need to say too much more about it. You can see the head has faded away to just be a bit of a thin foamy layer and a foamy ring around the edge of the glass. So let's have a wee look at the nose on this one and see what it's all about. Aroma section time. Oh yeah, that does smell very, very nice. And I'm going to say straight away, you're getting this distinct American two-row malt quality out of this one. Something I've picked up on over the years, you know, European malts and American malts do smell and taste very different. You know, the American standard is the kind of two-row sort of thing, whereas, you know, in Europe it's the crystal malts. And I think just the bready flavours that you get out of them are a bit different. And I think the American malts are just a little bit more oily, to be honest with you, when I think about it. The European malts are just a little touch drier. And you see the same with the wheat and the oats and things like that. American wheat is a bit smoother than European wheat, but I think the oats are just, I think the European oats are a bit creamier and the American ones are a wee touch drier. So yeah, interesting. Different soil profiles, different water profiles and all that. But I will say straight away that this beer gives you everything you would expect of the West Coast IPA as a style. So you've got some really nice kind of, you've got a really kind of big, deep green component in there, some lovely oily fruits, some nice bready, malty character as well. Yeah, everything that you'd want. So let's just break that down and describe it for you a bit more in depth. The backbone of the beer is absolutely a little bit more along the lines of, you know, like a fresh, white bready hedgehog bread crust. You absolutely get that out of this one. There's a wee touch of woody character in there. So yeah, a little touch of woodiness in there, but very, very minimal, I would say. A little bit of sweet wholemeal brown bread. Good little bit of fluffy white bread in there as well. And then, yeah, fluffy white bread in there. And then on top of that, you have some really nice, yeah, on top of that, you have some really, really nice kind of sweet, kind of biscuity and caramelly notes out of this one. I'm definitely getting a wee bit of that kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing, which, yeah, is one of the characteristics you can get in these West Coast IPAs. But yeah, this is really quite nice. So on top of the biscuity notes, you start to get that more kind of oily, boozy, caramelly sort of thing coming out of this one. Yeah, so there is a wee bit of a straight up caramel in this one, but it smells more like that kind of oily, concentrated, biscuity kind of thing that you get from that you can get often in these West Coast IPAs. Yeah, so it's more like a really oily, boozy, concentrated McVitie's digestive. There's a bit of the lighter, sweeter biscuit, but there is a wee hint of kind of straight up caramel in this one. So yeah, malty wise, this one is quite interesting actually. Not the most complex malt base I've come across in a West Coast IPA, right enough, but it's giving you everything that you'd expect. Let's look at the hoppy side of things. Now, on the green component, it is pretty much what you'd expect. There's a little touch of earthiness in there. You do get a wee bit, I think the earthiness is going to come from Mosaic out of all the hops that are involved in here, right enough. But there's a good little bit of that kind of piney resinous character as well, so really liking that. Yeah, nice kind of piney resinous character. You do get a little bit of that kind of more spicy floral aromaticity out of this one. And you've also got that kind of brighter, more grassy note as well. So yeah, the way everything pieces together in this beer is really very, very nice. Green component is exactly what you'd expect. The thing you need to remember with IPAs is that you have 3 different kinds of hopping. So you get early addition hopping, which takes place in the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness and a deep dank aroma and flavour. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place in the latter half hour of the wort boil, and that gives you a very bright green component and contributes mainly to flavour and aroma rather than, you know, giving you that big deep dank aroma. It tends to be very, very bright, but it gives you a little touch of bitterness. And then dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, that's all about flavour and aroma, and that's going to give you a very bright green component as well. West Coast IPAs tend to use all 3, hence why they're more bitter and why they have the deeper dank aromas. New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping, which is why they have the brighter kind of green components there. But there are more modern takes on the West Coast IPA, and I think it is most definitely fair to say that the IBU of West Coast IPAs has dropped on average in recent years because more and more people have been coming into drinking craft beer on the lower IBUs that we've seen in the New England IPAs. So yeah, this one does have a good little bit of that dankness to it, and I'm curious to see how that comes out in the flavour, because, you know, as someone who kind of got into craft beer sort of around 2010, I do like my West Coast IPAs to have that big bitter kind of punch to them. So hopefully this one follows along in that regard. But yeah, let's have a wee look at the nose. Yeah. The nose, the fruity nose, I should say, the fruity side of this beer is what you'd expect if you know these hops. You do get a little bit, you get a little tiny touch of grapefruit out of this one, which I think is going to be from the Simcoe, but it's a big, oily, juicy and quite bright passion fruit that jumps out of this one. So yeah, nice big oily passion fruit, you know, a little bit of grapefruit in there, and yeah, a bit of grapefruit, bit of oily passion fruit, and then yeah, you've got some really nice kind of oily orangey characters in there as well, which you'd expect. You can smell the brighter, kind of sharper tangerine from the Mosaic, but underneath that you've got that big, massive, oily, orangey character coming out of the coming from the Mosaic, of course. But yeah, the way everything pieces together in this one, I think, is really quite nice. Aroma wise, it gets more and more attractive the more that I smell of it. It definitely sweetens up as well, but as I always say, take a bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it, because I think that's always half the experience when it comes to craft beers. But yeah, I think it's about time that we taste this one. So yeah, this is the West Coast Gift, a West Coast IPA coming in at 7.1% ABV from Monkish Brewing Company in Torrance and Anaheim, I guess, as well, near Los Angeles, or in Los Angeles, I guess we should say, in California on the American West Coast. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's pretty damn nice. I'm going to say straight away, first impression, as I suspected it would be from the colour, it is one of these more kind of bready, biscuity type West Coast IPAs. Although in fairness, it does give you more and more sweetness the further into the aftertaste that you go. So yeah, definitely more and more of that coming out. But you also have you do get more and more of the bitterness coming out of this one the more that you drink of it. So it does have quite a bit of that kind of proper old school West Coasty character that you want. This is solid, actually. I'd be very curious to try like a slightly more caramelly leaning one from these guys as well, but they found a really, really nice balance in this particular beer as well. And for a 7%er, it does have a good little bit of punch to it. So yeah, it's good stuff, actually. Really good stuff. So, where to start with this one? middle third of your palate then, you've got a really, on that middle third of your palate, there's a really nice kind of, there's a really nice sort of wholemeal, brown bready, kind of bread crust forming the backbone of the beer there. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little touch of woodiness coming out in this one. So a little touch of woodiness in this one, and that lingers into the aftertaste. But yeah, above the bread crusty layer, you do start to get a little bit more of a kind of, how would we say, there's definitely a wee bit more of a kind of like brown bready layer, for sure. Definitely a wee bit of that wholemeal brown bready character. Yeah. So bread crust, kind of wholemeal brown bready notes coming out in this one. So yeah, wholemeal brown bready character in this one. Then you've got the white bready layer in there as well. So the way that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. The breadiness, the more that you drink of this beer, it does get slightly sweeter as well on the malty side of things. And as I say, I'm pretty sure it's American two-row because of the sweetness of the bread. That's one of the key things for me, is the kind of oily sweetness that you get with the bready malt. So yeah, the bread crust, the kind of wholemeal brown bread, the white bread in there. Yeah. The way that all pieces together, I think, is really, really nice. So above the kind of bready layer, you start to get the sweeter side of things coming out of this one. So you can feel in the dead center of your palate, there's that little concentrated oily, there's that concentrated oily biscuit that comes out of this one. And that's the boozy side of the beer. But as you move a little bit further out from that, you get a wee bit more of a kind of straight up sweeter caramel, maybe even slightly fudgy sort of element coming out of this one, which is quite interesting. But then yeah, as you push out toward the extremities of that middle third of your palate, you're getting more and more of a kind of, McVitie's digestive biscuity type character to the beer. So yeah, that's really nice in this one. And all of that, of course, sits on top of the white bready layer in the middle third of your palate. So yeah, again, I just really like how all this pieces together. So very, very nice stuff. Yeah. So on top of that, I don't know if there's really anything else to say about the middle third of the palate. So let's go to the back third of the palate. And as I've often said, the back third of your palate is going to give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just a little bit kind of drier and things. So yeah, on that border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there, a wee bit of brown bread in the base, the white bread on top. And then the base of that back third of your palate, you've got the bread crusty layer in there again, which you can feel it's a little bit drier, it's a little bit more grainy. Then above that, you've got the brown bready layer, the kind of sweeter wholemeal brown bready layer that I was talking about before, and you can feel that's just a little bit lighter and more airy and slightly drier. Then above that, you've got the white bready layer, which has a little bit more of a of yeah, you can feel that taller white bready layer in there, and it's just a little bit sweeter, to be honest with you. And then coming on top of that, you get a wee bit of the kind of drier aspect of the biscuity character just creeping over the top of those malty aspects on the back third of the palate. But then above everything else there on that back third of the palate, you have a wee bit more of a kind of yeasty character coming out of the beer. So yeah, the yeasty side of the beer is quite interesting with this one. So you get that kind of concentrated, sweet, brown bready character coming out of it. Yeah, so concentrated, sweet, brown bready character. As you move further out from that, you get a wee bit more of a kind of mix of white bread and brown bread in there. Then it just has, again, a little bit of a biscuity note around it. So that's all the yeasty character sitting on top of that back third of your palate there. But definitely, you can feel the flavour on the back third of your palate is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together. And yeah, the way that that goes together is very, very nice. So yeah, that is pretty good, I have to say. I think that's everything we need to say about the malty yeasty side of the beer. So let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. So back corners of the palate, you've got some really nice you've got a good little bit of earthiness coming out of this one, which is of course the Mosaic. Mosaic is going to give you that kind of more earthy, deeper kind of character in there. But then yeah, as you move further forward, it's got a little touch of herbal character, not all that much, but you can feel that nice kind of deep, dank, sort of piney resin character coming out of the beer too. So definitely getting quite a little bit of that out of this one, and again, I like how that kind of pushes its way out into the beer. But yeah, as you reach the front corners of the palate, a little bit more kind of spicy, floral aromaticity, and then round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and a wee bit more sort of grassy, I would say. So yeah. So yeah, a little bit lighter, a little bit more grassy, and yeah, a wee touch more kind of zesty, I would say as well. But again, I really like how all these flavours just piece together in this beer. This one is really, really nicely done. Yeah, I think that covers everything we need to say about the green component of this one. As I say, the bitterness of this beer builds a little bit into the aftertaste. But yeah, front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there. Some brown bread on the base, the white bread on the top. Then the base of that front third of your palate, you've got the nice little bit of kind of bread crust again, sweeter brown bread on top, smoother white bread, and then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, let's focus on that fruity side of things then. Yeah, that's good. At the back of that front third of your palate then, you do get a little hint of that kind of typical grapefruit. So yeah, big kind of yeah, a little bit of that kind of bitter, zesty grapefruit. But then as you move further forward, of course, you start to get the juicier, softer, and more, you know, kind of oily passion fruit in there from the Simcoe. And then as you move, that lingers there. As you move into the front half of that front third of your tongue, it's all about the kind of tangerines and the oranges. You know, you can feel the more oily, zesty orange of the Mosaic sitting underneath, of the Amarillo, sorry, sitting underneath, and you can feel the lighter, juicier tangerine from the, pardon me, from the Mosaic sitting on top. So yeah, this is it's a really nicely done beer, this one. You know, Simcoe and Amarillo is always a good combination in West Coast IPAs. Citra Amarillo, Citra Mosaic is always very good as well, because you get a good balance between the more citrusy and the more kind of tropical fruits. But I think they've got this one pretty damn spot on, actually. It's a wee bit different from your kind of classic sea hop IPAs. We've got, you know, Citra, Centennial, Columbus, Cascade, Chinook as well. But Comet is another popular one, or was another popular one back in the day for these. But yeah, really, really nicely done West Coast IPA, this one. I think we said everything we need to about the flavour of this beer. Let's round off with just a wee look at the mouthfeel. So, mouthfeel wise, I'd say it's kind of mid-bodied. It's right in the middle of the spectrum, maybe pushing toward top end of mid-bodied, but not overly thick in all honesty. Carbonation has a wee bit of a prickle to it. It's a little bit oily, but has a bit of cleanliness to it, and it's a wee touch slick. And then there's also a good little bit of bitterness to this one too, but that takes a wee bit of time to build. I don't think this is 80 or 90 IBUs. I think this is maybe like 60, maybe 70 at a push. I think it's somewhere around that region. So 60, 70 IBUs would be my guess. I'll say that though, and I'll be wrong. Counting IBUs is my weakest point of beer reviewing for sure. But yeah, the malt base, as we said, it's got a bit of dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, and the oily sweetness on top. And then yeah, we've got that really nice kind of oily, sweet character from the fruit as well, which I really like. So yeah, all in all, very, very good West Coast IPA. I hope this isn't the last one that we see from Monkish. Of course, I would like to try a West Coast double IPA, and also one that's a little bit more caramelly leaning from these guys. But they've certainly shown me with this offering that they're very capable when it comes to this particular style. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that. This one was the West Coast Gift, a 7.1% West Coast IPA from the wonderful Monkish Brewing Company in Torrance and Anaheim in the Los Angeles area in California and the American West Coast. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Monkish Brewing Company as well. And we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very shortly. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and thank you again.